Lipids are the next organic molecule we're going to take a look at. And lipids are also made of carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen. The basic examples that we see that lipids are considered to be fats and oils. Now you know that if you take oil and you put it in water, it does not dissolve in the water. In fact, you'll see it like clump up. And that's because of its hydrophobic nature. Remember that hydro means water, phobic kind of means scared. So it's scared of water because it's nonpolar. So again, these are not soluble in water. If you take a look at your chart under the structures, or I should say under the monomers, lipids are unique and they're different from carbohydrates because of the monomers they're made up of. So the two monomers that make up lipids are glycerol and the 3 fatty acid chains. We don't have to say 3. If you just say fatty acid, that's perfect. So on your chart, you want to place in here that this is called a glycerol, and you also record on your diagram that this is a fatty acid. So the glycerol is 1, 2, 3 carbons, and those 3 carbons help attach these chains. So again, review. Lipids are made of monomers. Those monomers are glycerol and fatty acids. Now, one type of fatty acid that they can have are called saturated fatty acids. In your chart under the functions, or examples, I should say, under the examples, you should see this diagram. You want to label it saturated fatty acid. A saturated fatty acid is a straight line. So saturated starts with an S, straight starts with an S, and that's how you remember that a saturated fatty acid is a straight line. These clump together really well, and that can be a problem for organisms trying to use them. They're extremely dense. Unsaturated fatty acids, think unsaturated, unstraight. You notice that they are bent. So unsaturated, unstraight. Again, on your examples, you see this diagram, you want to label it as unsaturated. Maybe you want to write yourself a note. It's unstraight. It has this little bend in it. Because of this little bend, these are primarily liquids when they're in a fat stage. We're going to talk about that in a second, the importance of that. Now, once we start putting our monomers together, we start getting all these glycerols and these fatty acid chains all together, we start making different types of lipids, and depending on the type that you have depends on our function. So we could have something called a triglyceride, and this primarily stores energy in the form of fat. We have a phospholipid. You probably heard of this before when we talked about cell membranes. Phospholipids make up the membrane components surrounding the cell. And you could also have things like steroids. Now, we're not talking about like steroids that bulk you up. We're talking about basic steroids like cholesterol, which is a vital part of signaling in our cells, or steroids for male and female sex hormones. So let's kind of remember what we were looking at with saturated and unsaturated, and think about how this is going to affect our diet. You probably heard like taking in trans fats and unsaturated and saturated fats, and you've probably heard different things about if this is healthy or not healthy. So check out the next slide in the video to see how that works in with human health.